knitwear designer and content creator, and I think I can officially say I'm an influencer now, considering this video is all about my first ever influencer event. I don't feel like an influencer. Honestly, I'm not like, I don't even do like ads or anything like that, but nonetheless, the lovely people at Mode at Rowan decided that they would like for me to attend their influencer event, and it's all about the launch of some of their new yarns, and I was really honoured to be invited, and I'm so glad I said yes because I had a wonderful time. So a little bit of context. Mode at Rowan is like a subsidiary of Rowan Yarns. If you're a knitter, crocheter, yarny person, you will have heard of Rowan. They are one of the biggest, most long-standing yarn producers in the UK. They're some of the first yarn that a lot of knitters encounter, and we had this discussion at the event actually, because I think for me definitely, and for a lot of other people I've spoken to, when you first start knitting or crocheting in the UK, you've kind of got two options when it comes to like yarn availability, unless you're lucky enough to have a small local yarn store near you, and they're few and far between in the UK, unfortunately. You've either got Hobbycraft or you've got John Lewis, which used to have haberdasheries. A few of them still do, not all of them anymore, unfortunately, but in John Lewis and the haberdashery, they stock Rowan yarns, all of them. All of the Rowan yarns. So for me, certainly that was the first time I kind of encountered like anything beyond your kind of usual like bonus, hayfield, Serdar, King Cole type things, which I think are a lot of people's first yarns. They were certainly my first yarns. But then I found out, well, I wanted something, you know, that was wool or alpaca. I wanted to move away from acrylic, and the thing that was available to me was Rowan. So I've got a lot of really lovely memories. My first ever full adult size garment that I made myself was a Rowan pattern. It was the blue haze jumper. I didn't gauge swatch. I used the wrong yarn. It was far too big. I wore it twice and then felted it. But it was like my first experience of like a proper grown-up pattern, and yeah, I've got lots of lovely memories. So when they messaged me, it was like, wow, like this is a big moment for me. If I could go back like 3 or 4 years and say, one day you're going to be going to the launch of their new yarn event, and it was like, oh. So I said yes, and I was very fortunate in that my dear friend Lizzie of Hive Knits was also invited to the event, because if Lizzie wasn't going, I would not have gone. I would have just been far too anxious and worried, and I just couldn't have done it on my own. I would have been fine. Obviously, having Lizzie there was amazing. She was so supportive, and my friend Rachel was also there. They have both made videos as well, so if you want to go and check it out from their point of view, I'll link their videos below as well. And I got to meet loads of other lovely yarny people whilst I was there. So me and Lizzie decided that we were going to make a whole day of it. Lizzie lives in Manchester and I'm in the Midlands, so we're quite far apart. We can't meet up that often, though we've seen each other quite a lot this year, which is lovely. Well, over the past year. So we decided to make a day of it, and we met in London super early in the, well, not super early, it was about 11 o'clock that we met in London, and we headed straight to a yarn store. The one nearest to us was Loop. I've never been to a London yarn store. It was either Loop or Beautiful Knitters, but Beautiful Knitters was just a bit too far away from where we were, so we went to Loop, and it was, oh, it was so lovely. It was a small shop, but there were 2 floors, and it was just like jam-packed with so much beautiful yarn. We spent at least an hour in there looking at all the beautiful yarn, and I did buy some yarn whilst I was there, but I'm gonna save that for the next podcast, because this is a Mode at Rowan video, and I don't want to be like showing other yarns because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to or not, but I'll show those in the next podcast what I got from Loop. But I did get some beautiful yarn with a really lovely intention for it. But yeah, Loop was lovely, and it was just nice to be in the kind of yarny world. And we were in, I think it's in Camden area that we were in, And whilst we were heading back to the tube, we popped into a vintage shop because they had some really cool knitwear in there. There was a lot of hand knit stuff, some machine knit stuff, some crochet, and we were like looking at all the different jumpers, and it was really inspiring. It was so fun. I'd really like to like do that as like a whole day adventure, just go to somewhere where there's loads of vintage shops and find all the pieces and get inspired. That was so fun. But after that we headed over to Primrose Hill, which is where the event was, and we went for some lunch. We very specifically wanted to go to get some ramen, so thank you Lizzie for finding the restaurant. It was a lovely small little kind of Japanese Asian fusion restaurant, and we just ate and chatted and the hours flew by. I'm really glad we did that because you can't really have those catch-ups when you're at an event, so it was nice to actually have some one-on-one quiet time with Lizzie, which was lovely. So we then went off to go to the event at the right time, and oh the moment I got round the corner I felt this huge, like my stomach rolled, and I was like, oh my god, I can't. I had this very, very strong surge of anxiety, and I was so glad Lizzie was there because I was able to voice it, and I just said, oh, I'm really nervous. So she was like, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be okay. I took a deep breath and we went, and as soon as we got to the place I looked in the window, and through the window I could see my friend Rachel in her beautiful pink dress, and it was like, oh yay, excitement, happiness, and yeah, it was so good. I don't know if you could tell from the smile on my face that I had such a good time. And I didn't just have a good time because the event was so fun, which it was, and I'll tell you all about that in a minute, but it was also like a huge step for me mentally to do this kind of thing. Obviously I've been to yarn shows and all that kind of stuff, and that's always been my choice. I've not been like there like representing myself, I've just been there as like a person having fun and meeting friends and stuff. But yeah, this felt very much like I'm here, I'm Laura Penrose, I'm representing my brand, who I am, like, and it was just a lot, but it was, yeah, a huge step for me, and I really, really, really enjoyed it, and maybe I could do it on my own one day. I don't know, maybe if I'm lucky enough to be invited to something else like this, I'll have the confidence to do it on my own, we'll see. But anyway, so we got there, and the kind of pop-up shop was beautiful, like the area of Primrose Hill, oh my goodness, so beautiful. I felt like I was in an episode of Made in Chelsea. I know it's not Chelsea, but it kind of looks like it. And there were beautiful, colourful buildings and huge, stunning, like big London townhouses, and oh, it was amazing. It was so nice, and it was a beautiful day as well. The weather was perfection, wasn't hot, wasn't cold, but just lovely. And so yeah, the shop was lovely. They had all the yarns out, and they had loads of samples, and had a glass of prosecco, and it was just really nice, and everyone there was so welcoming and friendly and happy, and it didn't feel like this formal corporate thing. I think that's what I was expecting in my head, for it to be, I don't know, like formal and corporate, but it wasn't at all. It was so relaxed, it was so chilled, and the more time I spent there, the more relaxed I became. And it was quite small as well. There was, I think, maybe 10 of us there, 10 influencers, and it was such a beautifully curated group of people. Everyone was so nice, and I know that's what everyone says, oh, it's so lovely, but they genuinely were. I think it was like within a few minutes, sat around the table, everyone was chatting and talking and sharing, and it was like just a group of friends hanging out, and it was lovely. So once we got there, we had a glass of bubbles, popped our stuff down, and we had a little chat about some of the yarns, and we met the people who were organising it all. I cannot remember everybody's names. I'm awful with names, I truly am. But one of the first people I met was Georgina, who is the lovely lady who was organising the whole thing and contacted me, and who I'd spoken to over email, and it was like meeting a friend. It was lovely. And yeah, we got briefly kind of shown about the yarn and introduced to people, and then we sat down for the main event. And the main reason for this event was to launch and showcase 6 brand new yarns from Mode at Rowan. Oh, there's a man outside, and I think he's looking for something. False alarm. Normally when there's someone outside my house looking around, they're looking for my house, because we don't currently have the name of our house on our house, so people can never find our house. but for once it wasn't for me. So Mode at Rowan so far has produced patterns that are usually designed by Quail Studio and using Rowan yarns, but this is the first time that Mode have launched their own yarns and with it a new collection of patterns. So as it was an influencer event, I got swag and I was really quite excited because we got some pretty good swag. We like left with our boxes and me and Lizzie were like, oh, does this make us real people? And yeah, I was so pleased. But yes, we got given some of the yarns. They didn't have all of them available to give us, but I did try and get as many shots of them as I can, and I will show you the ones that I've got. I've got 1, 2, 3, I've got 4 different ones here. And we got some nice merch, got a little tote bag and some stationery, and I got the shade card, so it basically shows, well, it does show every single yarn and every colour that you can get. And what they've done this time is, I mean, the pattern that I first made from Rowan was part of a booklet. When they do release sets of patterns, they tend to be in one book and you'll buy that collection. But what they're doing with this collection, which I think is wonderful, is they are selling the patterns individually and they come in little printed books. And then you've got the lookbook, which has got all the patterns in. So you can have this just to look through, and it's almost like the catalogue of all the different samples, all the patterns, all the yarns, and then you can choose the actual patterns that you want and then purchase those patterns on their own, which I think is great. Like, books are lovely, but let's be honest, 9 times out of 10 you don't knit every single thing in that book, and it's easier as well, I find, to work if you are, I mean, I work digitally a lot of the time, but just working from this one thing with the one pattern rather than finding the bit in the book and opening the book. So I think that was a really good move from Mode at Rowan going into this way. And the pattern that I received, I don't know if everyone got the same pattern, but oh, it's so beautiful. I've been given a Keswick pattern, which is this chunky zipper oversized ribbed pullover, and I can definitely see myself making this at some point this year. I've wanted a zip-up pullover for quite a while, but I've not found one that's like fully captured me yet. And this one, I saw the sample of this in the shop, it was in the window, and it's just, I mean, it's just me. It's maximum cozy to a T. Look at that. I love this like V-neck detail around here. And it's just oversized and chunky and gorgeous, and I definitely think I can see this coming in my future. It's also made from one of my favourite of the yarns that they've shown, and I've got it. I've got this colour of this yarn to show you, which is so exciting. But before we do, I just thought I'd like show a couple of the other designs that we saw that I really liked. It was really interesting. It was one of the unique things about the event was getting to see the samples in real life. That's just not something you tend to do. Obviously, if you go to a yarn shop, then you can see samples, but not necessarily of the things you're interested in doing. There's lots of accessories. This one, hopefully I can show you this nicely. This, I saw the sample of this, and it's very simple. It's a V-neck, split hem, lightweight jumper. And you can see it better in this picture, that it's not a V-neck, it's not a round neck, it's kind of in between. And I really liked that. It like really drew my eye, like that kind of neck shaping, because I'm not really a V-neck kind of girl. She says wearing a V-neck. I wear V-necks in the summer, but I don't wear V-necks when it comes to jumpers, because I'm like, why would I be warm when this bit is cold? But I was really drawn to that neckline. So that's the Titchwell. And what else can we show you? There's menswear in this collection as well. There's a really lovely, simple kind of cabled sweater and a moss stitch sweater as well. I think it's probably going to be best for me to just pop up some little pictures on the side for you to see, because holding up the book isn't great. Oh, there's a stripy kind of vintage inspired, vintage fit top that was just so beautiful. You can see it there, but again, I'll put pictures in Sorry, editing Laura. But yeah, I was really inspired by seeing the actual samples in real life, getting to touch them, and it was a really nice experience. Let's just move you back down a little bit there. That's a bit better, isn't it? So the yarns. This, right, let me get my thing ready so I can tell you exactly what we're doing. This was, I think, was it my favourite? I'm not too sure. This was, they were basically, I've got my top 3 and I've got the top 3 to show you. This is the, ooh, dog, oh my goodness. This is the softest alpaca. And as you can see, oh my goodness, it's like marshmallow. It's beautiful. It is a blown yarn, and we were discussing this at the event, and I feel like blown yarns really had a moment a couple of years ago, but then they've kind of fallen out of fashion again a little bit. But I'm really ready for it to come back because I love blown yarns. I'm all about the softness, the lightness. You can have that thick chunky gauge without it being so heavy. You do need to be careful about the pattern you choose because they don't give much structure. So when you look at a pattern like this, this pattern itself is seamed, which will give this yarn and this pattern structure. When I do this, I will probably work the sleeves in the round, but the front and the back is all worked flat and then seamed at the side. And you need that with this type of yarn, with this type of floatiness. And it was actually really good being able to speak to the people at Rowan, because one of the questions I've always had is why are so many Rowan patterns worked flat and seamed and not top down in the round, where certainly in my part of the knitting community there's been a big shift towards in the round. There's people don't like seaming as much anymore, and people prefer to like knit in the round rather than knit purl. And we got to ask that question, and the answer was what I thought it was, and it's that it's for structure, it's for stability. Those seams on the side and on the sleeve give the garment structure. But it was also nice to hear that they are including more and more top down in the round garments. There are some in this collection, and that was really good to hear, because then we know that there's something for everyone in this collection. For those people who really don't like seaming, there's something for you. But I also would greatly encourage seaming, and I think something like this where it's all ribbed, so it's not like you're knitting on the front, purling on the back, and the purl feels laborious. It's the same front and back because it's knit, well, I won't give the stitch pattern away, but it's knit purl both sides, so it doesn't feel that different. So I can definitely see this in my future. And then sticking with this type of blown yarn, I should probably give you the content. The softest alpaca, it's alpaca, 70% alpaca, 7% wool, 23% polyamide, and the polyamide is the tube that the fibres are blown into. And yeah, oh, I love this stuff, I love it. And then on a very similar vein, we have this is the alpaca cotton. So again, very, very similar. It's got the cotton core and the alpaca's blown through it, but it is a much thinner, finer yarn. With these blown type yarns, they're usually quite chunky, quite thick, but this is so fine. It's actually very similar to another Rowan yarn that I've got some of in stash, but this one, it's just, oh, it's so beautiful. It can be held single for something really light and floaty. It could be held double for something a little bit more sturdy. But again, you get that light, thin floatiness without the heavy. It's also alpaca. It's not mohair, so you get the lightness, the fluffiness, but it's a mohair alternative. Speaking of mohair alternatives, and whilst there's a lot of alpaca in this collection, and apparently alpaca is like the fibre of the moment. That's where the trend is going, and I can understand why, because alpaca is beautiful, it's soft, it's drapey, it blends so well with other fibres, and there are lots of blends in this collection. And speaking of which, you've got the alpaca haze. Now, the Kid Silk Haze was the first mohair. The Kid Silk Haze from Rowan was the first mohair I ever used. Those of you who've been here for a while might remember the no frills sweater I made, but I made a huge boo-boo that I got 2 different dye lots and my sleeves were different colours to the body. But I couldn't get rid of that garment because the Kid Silk Haze was so beautiful, and it's still one of my favourite mohairs up there. And this is the alpaca alternative. So this is 58% alpaca, 22% wool and 20% polyamide. So it behaves in the same way as like a Kid Silk mohair, in that it's kind of got the internal strand with the fluffy fibres around it, but it's alpaca, it's not mohair. And so it serves the same purpose, but it gives quite a different vibe. It's a much more of a matte finish. It hasn't got the shine of the silk mohair, obviously because there's no silk in it, and it gives that kind of boucle vibe that's very popular right now, that kind of matte but very soft. And so you can use it on its own, held double as a second strand along with another yarn, and oh, it's just beautiful. It's so nice. I definitely feel myself moving towards the alpaca. I think my journey as a knitter, I went through my big mohair phase, but if I am 100% completely honest with myself, I don't always enjoy the feel of mohair. I can tolerate it, but this is definitely closer to what I can tolerate sensory wise. Whilst we were in there, like the urge to rub everything on my face, I had to try really hard not to, well, I did try very hard and I didn't do it because it's socially and like hygienically unacceptable, but now I can do all the face rubbing that I want. Apparently this is okay, it's okay to do this, but this is what I wanted to do, and it definitely passes the softness test. So I've got one more yarn to show you. And I think this is the yarn that was getting most people pretty giddy, and I was really excited about as well. And this is the alpaca wool, and it's a 50-50. Let me just double check that. Yeah, 50-50 wool. DK gauge. And I've got 2 balls of this, which is exciting. When you have these little samples, obviously these are for you to just fill the yarn, you can swatch with the yarn, and then if you want to use them, I can speak to Rowan about yarn support or sponsorship and all that kind of thing. But I got 2 of these ones in the same dye lot, so I could feasibly make something out of this. I could make myself a little scarf, I could make myself a hat, I could make myself some gloves, I'm not too sure, but this is the alpaca wool, and do you know what I'm gonna say? It's lovely. It's hard to find more descriptive words, but as it's a 50-50, you get the benefits of both. You get the lightness of wool and the warmth and softness of the alpaca, because I find pure alpaca on its own can be somewhat dense sometimes, and it is very drapey. So having the wool in there as well gives it that bit more stability, and it's like best of both worlds, and it's so beautifully soft. I feel like you can make yourself the nicest garment out of this. Let's see if I can find a garment sample using the alpaca wool. Oh, there we go. Oh yes, this is the Salt House, and it's a really simple tank vest. I like how this could be on its own like this, or worn over something as well. A really versatile piece, very relaxed, and it would just be so. There you go. Is it insane? Have I got Dove number 14? Dove? Yes. So this design is in this yarn here, that same colour, and it's just so classic and beautiful. So I'm really excited to get to use some of these yarns and work with some of these yarns. And so yeah, that was the yarny side. We started with a big talk, and they talked a lot about, oh, sorry, I just kicked you and then I nudged you. They talked a lot about their ethos, their inspiration. They take a lot of inspiration from like architecture and nature, and there are kind of 3 different sections to this collection. There's coast, so obviously taking inspiration from the coast. There's living, so you can see they've got like an inspiration image here. So it's very modern, very clean, very structural. And then there is, what was it? I should know this. Studio. And you've got this picture of this lovely boucle chair, which was in the shop as well. It's very nice. And these also feel kind of a little bit more, they're like basic simples, but with a bit of a bit of a moment with a bit of style. So yeah, it was really nice to learn more about the collection, because it's so easy to think that, oh, it's just like just a group of jumpers and a group of hats or something, but to find like the core inspiration behind the collection was really, really interesting to hear. And to get to know a bit more about the company. Something that I was really, really pleasantly surprised about when it comes to mode at Rowan is it is a family affair. Like literally a family affair. The lovely lady who's like the head, the CEO of everything, is in control of everything, who is also the sample knitter on the Harry Potter movies. We were like mind blown. Amazing. Has had the most incredible life in the industry. It was fascinating to hear, and me and Lizzie were just like hanging off her every word and could have listened to her talk about her life and her career for hours, but we had to leave. So she's like the head of it all, and then her daughter and son are part of it as well, and you could see the family dynamic, and that was really nice to see, especially within a more like I can never remember this word. I always want to say corporate, but it's not corporate. Commercial. Especially in what is quite a big commercial business, to have that family vibe within it was lovely, and that kind of family nurturing vibe was really present at this event, and the way they were talking to us and about how they wanted to work with influencers, with designers. It wasn't just like a lot of the time you're given products and expected to promote it, and the actual value in that promotion, it isn't always seen. It's like the value of the product that you're given isn't actually worth the potential promotion that you can give. You know, I can show these I can show these products to thousands upon thousands of people, and you didn't get that vibe. You could tell from the way they're set up, their influencer programs, and the way they treated their influencers, that they wanted to nurture good relationships, supportive relationships, fair and equal relationships, which was really, really lovely and encouraging to hear. I'm really quite I don't work with people very often, if I'm honest. Mainly because of just my own needs as a spicy person who struggles to work with other people. It makes me very selective about who I work with, to the point that I've only really worked with one major brand before, and that's John Arbon, who have been wonderful to work with. I'm still working with, they've been very patient with me, and they have that same vibe. And I got that from Rowan as well, which was just really, really lovely, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully working with them in the future. I'm not sure which level I want to go in at yet, because there were quite different ways you could work with them, which was wonderful. There was like affiliate, design sponsorship, influencer sponsorship type things, loads of different ones, whichever you were comfortable with, and that's really exciting. So that's what happened. That's what it was like. And then we had some really, really fun activities when we were there. The first thing was so up my street. It was hand yoga with, let me tell you who it was. It was hand yoga with Sophie Martin Yoga, and it was wonderful. I've started a bit of a yoga journey recently. I've tried to start a yoga journey so many times, but it's always been with the wrong intentions, and I'm really enjoying it at the moment. So to just be in this space, and it wasn't just we weren't just like stretching our hands, you know, for hand health within knitting, though that was part of it. It was like neck and shoulders and back and arms all sat down. You could all sit on the sofa before or after you'd done your craft, and it was so relaxing and calming and just wonderful. Really, really, really enjoyed it. And then we also had a talk from Anne Kirkterp. She said we could pronounce her name however we like, but she is a Danish author, and this was such an amazing surprise to hear this talk from this author. Anne has written a book called Craft Psychology. You can see a picture of it there, and it was released in Denmark a couple of years ago, and it's just been translated to English and is being released. It's being published here in England, and I cannot wait to get my copy. They didn't have enough copies to give out on the day, unfortunately, but we should be able to be sent one, and I cannot wait to read it. It was fascinating. Anne herself was so charismatic, so like engaging and interesting to listen to and funny, and I just can't wait to read her words. It's all about, we all know that crafting is good for us, but she's done years of study and research into why it is good for us. And she was talking about attention and how the correlation between challenge and interest and finding that sweet spot is where we enter this place in our mind where we can truly switch off from all the stuff we're dealing with day to day, and how if it's too challenging and you don't have the skill for it, it takes you out of that mode, which is nice to be in. Or if it's not challenging enough and it can get boring, which then takes us out of that mode again. But finding that sweet spot in the middle, like just like rejuvenates us and helps us heal and switch off, and it was just so fascinating, so fascinating. And I need to do the thing on the thing so that I can get the book. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. So it was just lovely. And then afterwards we had food and we had chats and I got to meet a few people, and oh, it was just so nice. Honestly, it was so lovely. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really grateful that I got to go. So yeah, I guess that's it, isn't it? I'd love to know if you have worked with Rowan yarns before, if you have made a Mode at Rowan pattern, if you know about this brand, if you've heard about it, if you're inspired by anything I've shown you today. I'd really like to know your opinion. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me for this video. I know it's a bit different to what I normally do, but hopefully you've enjoyed the vloggy content. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your support here on my channel, because without your support and without you guys watching my videos and interacting with my videos, I wouldn't get invited to these wonderful, lovely events. So thank you to you guys for all your support and for making this happen for me. I really do appreciate you, and I will catch up with you guys all again very soon. Thank you to everyone at Mode at Rowan for such a beautiful event, for inviting me to the event. Please have me again another time. I had so much fun. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye.